Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Sarah Homfray Embroidery. I am Sarah and I would like to welcome you, especially if you're new to the channel. I know we've had lots of people joining over the Christmas period, so welcome to you. Do check out all of our other videos. If you click on my YouTube channel image, the little round picture, you can go to our channel page and all our videos are in there and all our playlists. Do have a good look around there and see if you can find something else that you like. I'd also like to thank our channel members and our patrons who have sent in pictures of their stump work for us to look at. So we're going to have a look at those later. They're really beautiful, so do make sure you hang around and see those. And the other thing I just want to mention, quite important this one for this video, I was having a look on my bookshelves for some stump work books that I'd got, and I found this one here, and I have two. And I don't need two. So what I thought I would do in this video, I wasn't going to do this originally, but I think it's a good idea, is I'm going to give one of these away to one of you who is watching today. So one of them was given to me by a very special friend and she's written a message in it, so I'm going to keep that one, but I am going to give the other one away. So keep watching to make sure that you get a chance to join in that and see how to win yourself a stump work book. Okay, so what on earth is stump work? So it's also known as raised work, and I've got a piece I'm going to show you here. Show you to this camera. So this is my William the Conqueror that I did on my apprenticeship, and it uses different techniques to raise the embroidery off the surface fabric and make it three-dimensional. Hopefully you can see that there. You can see him sticking up from the fabric with lots of different techniques that we'll look at in a minute. So this is William. We will come back and have a look at William as well. So that's just to show you what the technique is. And this raised work technique was popular in England in the 17th century, so late 17th century, but it was kind of borrowed from another technique with similar kinds of effects that was done in Europe on mainly ecclesiastical things, which involve padding things and bringing them off the surface that way. So that goes back to the 15th century. So it's actually got a really long history. So we're going to look at more of the 17th century kind of stump work, and we're going to have a look at some of my pieces. So where does the term stump work come from? So stump work's actually a modern term. It was known as raised work, and stump work's more of a 19th century invention, and there's a little bit of confusion about where it actually came from. It is referenced in the written form in the 19th century, but there's two schools of thought about that. So the first one, that it is stump work or stamp work, so the design was stamped onto the fabric, it was drawn onto the fabric and then you embroidered on top of the design, so a reference to it being stamped onto your fabric. And the other one is to do with the actual raised part of it. So they would often use pieces of wood in the figures especially, and they would make these shapes out of the wood. They would fasten those to the embroidery and then you would work over the top of them and you would embroider over a stump, therefore it was stump work. So there's a couple of theories about that. I'm going to just show you two examples of that and then I'll let you decide which one you think it is. So I'm going to show you a picture from this book. This is The Art of Embroidery. We do have a set of videos on my favourite books. This is in there, so do go and check that out if you want to know more about this book, but I want to show you one image particularly in this book. So this is a stump work or raised work casket. Now when I say casket, I mean like a box. Basically, not the other kind of casket. They were called caskets. They were boxes. They had little hidden drawers and doors in them. And they used to make these in the 17th century. And the young girls would make these, would stitch these boxes. And they would be very young as well. They'd probably start about 9 or 10 even sometimes. And they would learn these techniques. And this is really the earliest form of an embroidery kit, if you like. The boxes would come separate with the wood separate, and they would make the panels and they would cover the wood panels with the embroidery, and they would make this casket, this box, and that would be their box for sort of treasures and keepsakes and things like that. And I wanted to show you this because these are rather amazing. They are quite rare. If you get to see one, do take a good look at it because there's not that many around. And you can see these raised this raised work on here. There's some figures here which we'll talk about a bit. We've got some animals here. These are all separate and sewn on afterwards. Some more figures at the top. The trees are quite dimensional as well. So sometimes you use stitches to bring out your stitching from the surface. So all sorts of things going on in these beautiful caskets. So let's have another look at a book for another stage of this process. So this is the Fella Collection, Volume 1. We have done a video on this book. So again, that's in that playlist, so do check that one out if you're interested to see what's in here. But I wanted to show you this specifically, following on from the casket. So this would have been one of those panels, and you can see again the figures and the little animals and the trees and the plants. So that's a finished design, but I thought what was really interesting about this is on the next page is this part worked one, and this is where you can see the designed only part worked. They've started it around the edges, but you can see the design has been drawn on here, and they're going to follow the design. So maybe this is where the idea that stamp work is stamp work came from, not actually stamped on. It would have been drawn on in ink in this instance, but maybe that's where that idea comes from, and you follow these designs that are already on the fabric. So that's one explanation. So here's a picture of the other theory about the wood. So this is a hand attached to, this is Abraham, so it's a piece of wood, the hand's been made out of a piece of wood, and it's been attached to the embroidery, and it would have had probably some fabric over it or some needle lace or some kind of embroidery over the top of it formed around the hand, hence embroidered over the stump work. So that's the other theory, so I'll let you decide which one you think it is. I think they're both really interesting, whichever one happens to be true. So let's have a look at some pieces from my collection that I have made, and we'll talk about the different techniques in it as I go, I think, because there's quite a lot involved in it, and we'll go through them as we get to each one. So I'm going to show you this one first. So this one is my sampler I made from my Royal School of Needlework apprenticeship. So this was the first thing that we did to practice all of these different techniques, and we put them together in this sampler just to have a little practice at them before we went on and did the main piece. So I'm just going to work my way around it. So I'm going to start here actually. So there's 3-dimensional stitches first, so things that will raise your fabric, your threads above the fabric that you're working on, that is just stitches and don't require any other kind of forming with wire or anything like this. So we've just got some little stitches here. You've got some little leaves that are raised up there. We've got little buttonhole bars here that you can just put my ruler under that. You can see how that's raised above the surface. We've got some wooden beads here that have been wrapped with some thread. These make really good berries and things like that. We've got some with needle lace over there. I'll talk about that in a second. Wired shapes. This is a really common one in stump work. This is the thing that really screams stump work at you, is a individual piece. It's got some wire around the edge. You sew over the wire, you cut it out, and you can attach things on. So that's a flat one there. We've got some needle lace in all of these corners here. So this is a way of sort of making something look like lace that's not actually lace, and you can use your sewing threads to make different patterns. You can see each one of these is different. That one, I think I was a bit tense when I did that one. It's all scrunched up. It's like, ah. But you can see the different patterns anyway, quite an open weave one here. And you can make these pieces so they're actually separate and they lift off the surface that you've worked them on, and you can attach them as separate shapes, which means you can do some sculpture with them. So this is quite an interesting technique to learn. We've got some pieces here which are sticking up quite high. Now these are called slips, and you make them separately. You embroider on a separate piece of fabric, you cut it out, you gather it up, you pull it tight, and you stuff it with something underneath, and it raises it up, and then you can attach those things to your project, so you can make hills out of them. And actually the faces are made out of a slip. A face is basically, your head is a slip, basically a form of a slip. So you can do lots of different things with those and attach those on. We've got some more stitches here. So we've got some woven picots. I have actually got a video on these woven picots. If you see my sunflower video, you can see how you do those there to make some sunflower petals. Got some little versions of the buttonhole picots here. These are actually separate and you can stitch them down. There's another wired shape here, so you can do them either open. There's a little bit of organza behind this one, or you can fill them with stitches. This has got some long and short and some beads on it, and again you can cut that out and you can attach those. They make great petals, that kind of technique. This is a wrapped piece of card that bends. You can wrap wire, you can wrap card, you can wrap beads, anything you can wrap a thread around, basically you can make a piece of stump work out of. So wrapping things is really good technique in stump work. We've got some more buttonhole stitches here. These are little circles that you can make and attach down afterwards. Got a few more little practices in the corner here. And then I just want to talk about the faces, because they do make really quite lovely faces, I think. They're quite cute and quite kind of they're not very realistic, they're quite cartoony, but I think they're a lot of fun, the faces. And you can use again this wrapped wire technique. You can just see there her little hand, which is wrap wire, and you bundle them together and you can make these little hands and you can make these figures out of them. And I've used again the slip for the head as well, and then you can just start to decorate it and pad it. So lots of padding in stump work as well, something that raises these techniques up off the surface. Some more wrap wire here, they make really good tendrils as well. So I think once you've had a little practice at wrapping things and cutting things out, and these three-dimensional stitches, you're a good way there to learning lots of stump work techniques. So the next piece that I want to show you is my Critters on Canvas piece. Now I made this a long time ago for a class that I taught in Portland in Oregon in the US. So if anybody's watching from those classes, hello to you. And we had a lot of fun doing this one. You came up with some really beautiful designs. So we've done it on canvas because it was taught at a needlepoint shop. So that explains why it's on this background that it is. And we just had a little go at some animals and some insects and some of those stump work techniques. I'm just going to run through those quite quickly. So we have got some slips. So these are the slips here. So the little oranges on the orange tree are slips. So we make them separately. They've been stitched on a finer canvas fabric, cut out and stuffed and stitched down. So that's the oranges. And the little ladybird as well, the ladybug, depending on what you call him, is also a slip. And then his legs are stitched on the surface. You can kind of attach it to the surface, so it looks, it's not either on or off. You can sort of meld between the two if you like. And the little bee is also a slip, and this is where I'm going to start to talk about turkey rug stitch. So the best three-dimensional stitch of all has got to be turkey rug stitch. It comes in again later, so we'll talk about that when we get to some other ones. So he's been stitched separately in this stitch that goes nice and fluffy. And then you can see these wired shapes that we talked about in the previous piece. So his wings are wired with some organza. They're cut out and they're applied separately, so they stick up from the surface. And that's the same here for the dragonfly. These ones are done in silk. This is a hand-painted silk here, and there's 4 of those, and they all stick up from the surface, so you can sort of manipulate them and bend them however you like. There's a little bit more turkey rug stitch in the dragonfly's body there. And what else have we got? So the little owl in the middle has also got some turkey rug stitch for his wings, his nice little baby owl, little baby feathers. So he's got some turkey rug stitch. The squirrel as well has got a little bit for his tail, and some stitching with some nice shading for his body, so you can start to mix up your techniques a little bit. I've just got to point out the little acorn. Jonathan made that for me. It's really, really beautiful. If I put my finger next to it, you can see how big it is, how small it is, should I say. It's tiny, tiny, tiny. So he made me the little acorn, but you could use a bead or something like that if you want those kinds of details. And then we've got this little hedgehog down the bottom. He's done in bullion knots. So bullion knots is a really nice three-dimensional stitch. You can stack them on top of each other and really bring that embroidery up. So he's down the corner of there. So that is my stump work Critters on Canvas. So on a similar theme of orange trees, I wanted to show you this one. This is my Lemba oranges. So I lived in Cyprus for a little while, studied there at college, and we're surrounded by these orange trees. So I have done quite a few orange trees in my time. And you can see the slips again, but they're coming out a little bit more now. These are getting a bit bigger and a bit more padded, and you can just really bring these things out. And I've got some leaves that are flat on the background that I've stitched, but I've also done some wired ones. So I stitched the leaves in, I think that's a fly stitch in one colour. I've wired the edges, I've cut it out, and I've stuck them on. And these are actually the same, turn one over, on the back as they are on the front. So I made sure I did my stitching super neatly so they look the same on the back. So you can actually look underneath this one, and you can just twist them and bend them into shape and get something really quite sculptural. It's really wonderful how you can shape these pieces. It's got a bit flat actually, so I'm going to poke them up a little bit. And you can see how those leaves are really coming to life now. It's coming out of the fabric that it's on. And then this one as well, you can't tell because we don't have smelly vision, but the oranges were made out of a specialist thread at the time that DMC did a one-off, and you scratch it and it smells of oranges. So it's really beautiful. It smells as well, and it's really tactile and textural. So a really, really fun piece, that one. So these wired shapes that we've had a little look at are really good for doing wings and insects and butterflies. And I've got quite a few butterflies to show you, but I want to show you this one first. take that off really carefully. So these are my little Stumpwork silk shaded butterflies. So I've silk shaded the butterflies first. I've put the wire around the edges, I've stitched over the wire, I've cut them out, then I've made wire antennae, stitched those on the back, and a little wire on the back, and just attached them to this little piece of mossy wood that I found, and they just flutter a little bit. They just balance on that wire and they just flutter really beautifully. So you can just cut pieces out and just have three-dimensional pieces on their own, but they're using those Stumpwork techniques to create them. So let's have a look at some more of those butterflies. So this one here is a white one, and what I want to show you now is how you can mix different techniques in it. So Stumpwork is the raised work part of it, but you can do other things with it. So this butterfly is done in long and short stitch, so it's just done in sort of 2 shades of cream, really quite subtle colours, so long and short this, and then I've got gold work on it as well. So this is the gold work embroidery technique on the silk shading technique, and then a Stumpwork technique to cut the butterfly out. So you can start to layer these things up and use other knowledge that you might have as well. So I'll just lift up the wings, you can see there how they're wired, and this antenna as well is just wire that's been wrapped in a thread and doubled at the end and wrapped again back and been fastened on. And then I've just done it on a gold work letter B, a monogram B for butterfly, and just attached in there. So you can do pieces of work and then attach things to it and embellish them that way. So a couple more of these butterflies here, so a much simpler one just in silk shading, but here is that wonderful turkey rug stitch again. If I just turn him, you can see how much that sticks up, and there his antennae, and if I just show you the back of that one, that's what it looks like on the back, and then you could cover that with something, or you could attach it to something, however you wanted to finish that one. And then there's our little holly blue. So this is actually a kit that I made, and we have a video on this as well, so do check that one out if you're interested in this tiny little one. So just some silk shading here for his wings, a little bit of turkey rug here for the body, some very fine antlers, and again wired around the edge, and that's just done as one piece with the wire on the back, and he can be attached as well. So really great for butterflies. You can go mad with your Stumpwork butterflies. And the last 2 butterflies I want to show you, because I really do love these ones. We have a video on this as well, and a downloadable PDF if you want to have a go at making these. So these are gold work, but they're also Stumpwork. So this is again what I said about mixing your techniques. So it's been worked in gold work, they've been wired all the way around the edge, and then they've been cut out. Afterwards there's even some turkey rug in a metallic thread. That's quite tricky. Make sure you practice the stitch first before you do that one. And then that one's just been turned into a brooch on the back, and that one is ready just with a felt backing to just attach it to something. So those ones are really, really beautiful. But again, you can see those Stumpwork techniques coming in again. So what's good for butterflies is also good for dragonflies. So we got some more wired wings here. I think you're starting to get the picture now. And I've made these separately so I can attach them. You can lay them over the top of each other and you can bend them. So again, really sculptural here. And I've stitched some extra wing details on this one and used organza so you can see through them as well. So it really does add another dimension to your embroidery. And we've got another dragonfly here as well in gold. Same process, added in a dimensional body, so I've stitched that down with some threads and couched over those with some threads. So that's actually a gold work padding technique, so padding's starting to have a play in it now. Got some big beads for the eyes and just made the whole thing dimensional, and hopefully you can just see how much he's sticking up there. So this would be a good one to have a go at. If you're interested to learn some Stumpwork techniques, do let me know in the comments below, and maybe we could start with this one. This might be a good place to start. So those are dragonflies. So we had a look at the Stumpwork bee on my critters and canvas, but I've got a couple of more bees now, so you can do them in different ways. So this one has got a lot of turkey rug stitch here, gone turkey rug stitch mad. I've just done some outlines for his wings in some gold metal pearl here, so you don't have to do the wide shapes if time is of the essence here. And I've wrapped some beads as well for his eyes on this one as well, so brought in that wrapping technique. And then just this tiny little one here, it's quite cute, tiny little wings. You can see how big he is. So he's done purely in the gold work technique now, but again those wrapped wings with some little wing details on there and a gold thread, and those have been attached afterwards. So another interesting book here. So this is English Embroideries by Mary M. Brooks from the Ashmolean. That's a museum in Oxford. And there's a really interesting one in here. So we're on the sort of subject of animals and insects. And this one, we've got this wonderful little frog here. He's actually a little purse. And he's got some wrapped wire for his legs here and his little feet. Really, really cute. So this has all been wrapped, probably several wires for this. They're quite chunky. We've got some needle lace here. Remember, we looked at that on my Stumpwork sampler right at the beginning. And it's got some gold metal on here as well. So there's quite a few things going on there. And I was really inspired by him. I really loved him when I saw him. So I did my own little version of him. He's not quite as exotic as that one, and he's not a purse. I just made into a little brooch, but I had quite good fun with him. So this is the needle lace here. He's padded as well. You can see how wide he is there, and I've done the wrapped wire for his little legs and his feet and some beads for his eyes. So quite a good fun making him, and nice to use a historical source as well to make something from. So we've had a look at some butterflies and some bees and some dragonflies. So what else is good to do in the Stumpwork technique? So plants and foliage and gardens is quite good. So I'm just going to show you these ones quickly. So this is a little flower sampler I made, possibly again for the classes in Portland. I think we did this one in Portland. I'm sure someone will remind me. And I just did this little flower in the middle. So you can see now these wired shapes here. And I've silk shaded the flowers, so it was a good chance to practice some silk shading. We've wired them, we cut them out. We've made a group of them and made this three-dimensional flower. We've brought in this turkey rug stitch again, so make really, really good hedges and topiary and bushes and things like that, this turkey rug stitch. So we've done that around there and just had a little play with some stitches around there. So some Stumpwork techniques rather than a Stumpwork piece, I think. So there's some little versions of that here. We have a video on how to make these if you want to have a go at a little knot garden with some Stumpwork hedges in it. So just made some bushes on the corner, some little topiary on the corner, some hedges all the way around. There's 3 versions of those. So you can have a little play with those if you want to have a go at making a garden. And then I just want to show you this one, because this one is really 3-dimensional. And I've got some little topiary bush in the middle here. So this comes right up. I hope you can see how deep that is. If I put my fingers in there. Some little hedges around the outside. So Stumpwork's a great technique if you want to add something dimensional to a piece of embroidery. The whole thing doesn't have to be Stumpwork. You can add in these techniques and certainly bring some elements of your embroidery out. So this is definitely a piece we did at Portland. A lot of these pieces seem to have come out of those classes. This was an early one we did, and we were practicing some shading. That was the idea of this class. And then I just thought we'll put these 3-dimensional elements on here. So you can see again how this works now. So we've got some flat leaves here. That kind of grounds your embroidery into the surface of your fabric. And then I made some of these 3-dimensional ones in picots, these are called. So it's a kind of a weaving really, and you can see how that leaf comes out from the surface, and these ones as well. Here, and then there's a little one here, it's got a bit flattened like so, and then I've wrapped some wire here and then just twisted it around a needle, and it's made these beautiful little tendrils which again you can just mould into shape. So just adding those Stumpwork elements onto a flat piece just to give it some extra dimension. And just continuing on the plant theme here, so it's a little bit of a Christmassy one, so some holly and some berries, and these are wired again. I don't need to explain those ones to you anymore, but I just wanted to show you these berries here. So we've got some different techniques going in here. We've got some beaded ones, some felt ones with some beaded and some wire as well. So you can get inventive with the way that you make 3-dimensional things. You don't have to wrap them in the traditional way. If you don't want to, you can have a little play with the materials you've got and see what you can do just to make that dimension really stand out. And that's a completely 3D one. It's just attached onto this embroidery hoop there, and you can make these little motifs. So you can have a lot of fun with this technique. And the last one I just want to show in this little section here is this poppy that I made, and this was a brooch to wear on Remembrance Day, and I've silk shaded the petals, I've wired the petals, cut them out, put them together to make the flower. So they were 3 separate petals. I've got a little bit of wire scrunched up in the middle to make the centre of the flower. Again, the same with the leaf here. That's a 3-dimensional wired shape there, and then I've wrapped wire for the stem. So you can see these techniques coming in and again, and it's just how you put them together to decide what it is that you want to make. So those are all little samples from mainly classes that I've made over the years, but I want to go back to William the Conqueror, who I showed you at the beginning, because this was the second piece I made on the apprenticeship when I did the Royal School of Needlework apprenticeship, and this was to put all of those skills that we learned in the sampler together to make a finished piece. And this is more using traditional techniques, so I want to show you this one in a little bit more detail. So here he is. He is a little bit delicate now, so I need to make sure I wrap him up carefully because of these elements are sticking out. Obviously you have to be careful about how you look after this. So let's have a little run through what I've done here. So I've painted the background. This is actually watercolour paint on the background here, just to give him a setting to put him in, and he's sitting on his throne. So this is the missing panel off the end of the Bayeux tapestry basically, and I've just made up what I thought might have been in one of the end panels of the Bayeux tapestry. And so this is William here. So let's have a little run through. So he's got the slip for his head. If I just tilt that, hopefully you can see that in a bit more dimension. So that is the slip that's been attached on, and then you can sew the eyes and the mouth through. You've got to have quite good fingers for that and a couple of thimbles to get the needle through there. And his body is constructed out of lots of layers. So there's lots of padding under here. There's lots of felt padding, so that's built up in layers. You put the felt padding down first and sort of sculpt the body before you put any clothing on him basically, and then you make these pieces to fit. So it's not like making a dress and you dress him in a dress. You have to make the pieces to fit the padding that's underneath, so it would have been in layers. So you can see his little socks here. This is needle lace, very, very fine needle lace here for his socks, and then he's got this sort of tunic over the top in the yellow. There's another piece in the green, that's actually a separate piece, you can see that there. And then it's stitched down around the padding to give him form, to give the body form. And his arms are done separately as well. He's got some underneath here. This bit of his cape is underneath this. So you've got to do very, very careful planning and make sure that you get everything in the right order. And you've worked out all your sizes and it's all going to fit. So it does take a little bit of planning to do something like this. Because then he's got his hand. So we saw the hand that I made in the sampler right at the beginning. So this is another two of those. There's one here and his hand here. So this one is holding the sceptre and the orb here. And I've wrapped the fingers around the actual wires, and he's actually holding this bead here. So you can sculpt it to actually hold things. I think I've probably fastened them on as well, just in case. So you can really sculpt this. It's a really fun technique to learn. And I just made these up out of wire and beads and little bits of metal, and his crown is a bit of metal as well that I've cut out there. And then he's got some little leather shoe detail that's also been padded, and he sits on top of his throne, which are pieces of card that have been wrapped in a thread as well. So lots of these techniques coming in here, wrapping things, wiring things, needle lace and layering, and lots of padding as well. So I just wanted to show you that so you can see how all of these techniques come together to make a finished piece. Now you may have noticed lurking in the background is my Princess and the Pea bed. Now it's not a piece of stump work, but there is a piece of stump work in it. I'm not going to go into it in too much detail now. I will show you quickly, but if you are interested in this and how I made this, this was an apprenticeship piece as well. I have a whole video on that from start to finish about how I did that and how I constructed it, so do check that one out. But I'm just going to get her out and we're going to have a little look at her, because the princess is actually stump work. To disturb her sleep, I'm afraid. Here she is. So I've made her as a stump work figure, and if I take her bedclothes off, sorry my love, and I've actually stitched her to the upper bedding layer, upper mattress I suppose. So you can see again the slip for her head there. Dimensional that's been sewn onto the back. You don't make it as a three-dimensional piece completely and put her in the bed. She is sewn onto this background there. So that's the slip for the head. I've made her a little body there, and then I've kind of made her a dress. This is wired, so it's wires all the way through the arms, and I put the little hands on the end. The hands are a lot of fun. They're quite fiddly, but they are quite cute. And then her long brown locks. go under there, and then I've just done a little bit of padding to sort of give her the shape of a body so that she's lying in the bed. And okay, you can't see that when you look at the bed, but it's just one of those little extra details that you can put into something, so you can use your stump work in other projects and make a really, really fun piece. Now, with any kind of embroidery, I do think you need to practice it a little bit first. So if you haven't seen my video on sampling and why you should be sampling, do check that one out. It makes a lot of sense. Just don't try it for the first time on your finished piece, because the second one will always be better. So this is no exception. And I've got to show you this mad thing here. I'm going to show you to that camera there. So this is my mad shoe. And I found this metal shoe in Hobbycraft if you're in the UK, Michael's if you're in the US, that kind of a shop. I think it's actually kind of a wedding piece. It's for a wedding. I don't know. I didn't have anything like that at mine, but I think you're supposed to decorate it with flowers or something. But I just thought, oh, that'd be really good. I can wrap things around it, do all sorts of crazy stuff on it. And it was going to be a big design. But what I ended up doing was just my little sample pieces, and I tied them to the shoe. So I made something, and rather than it just hang around in a box, I thought, well, I'll just stick it on this shoe. And it's sort of turned into this kind of mad crazy slipper. I'll put it under this camera just so you can have a little closer look at that. So you can see on here I've got, what have we got? So we've got a little dragonfly there with some wrapped wire. We've got some bunches of grapes with some tendrils on it. There's another flower there. That was a class that I did in the UK. Pansy there. That's some sort of, I don't even know what that is. But what I want to show you is these. So this little berries. So these are wrapped beads. And you can just take threads round and round and round, and they really do look like berries. You can put a little bead on the bottom there. There's another one here. So this is like a mistletoe berries. There's some leaves there as well, and some berries there. Then we've got lots of berries going up here, lots of versions of beads and wire, trying things out. There was my first go at the poppy that we had a little look at earlier, just a wired shape for the leaf there. Some petals here with a bit of gold work on, all sorts of mad crazy stuff going on. There was a little practice run of a ladybird, and another dragonfly, and some leaves and some grapes on the end there. So quite good fun. But joking aside, do practice these techniques first. Have a go at wrapping things and wiring things, and you will learn a lot from doing it once, and then the second time that you do it, it'll be much better. And that was just a fun way to keep everything so it wasn't all floating around in the bottom of a box. Right, somebody has already asked me this question, and I wouldn't have considered doing it until they'd asked, so I will just cover it now. Is when is stump work not a piece of stump work? So I thought that was quite an interesting question actually. So we'll look at a couple of pieces that I've done, and I'll let you decide, and I'll just talk through them. So this was meant as a creative gold work technique, but as you can see, it's got three-dimensional things on it. So it's got a little bit of a tendril on it there, and that's in a plate ribbon, and it's got some three-dimensional little balls here made in wire, and the wire's been screwed up, and these are really dimensional as well. So it's got three-dimensional elements on it, but I don't know if I would call it stump work. You might think differently. I think if I had maybe wrapped a bead in a thread and put those down there, and wrapped some wire in a thread and made a tendril, I think maybe that would be stump work, but maybe this is a modern day version. So it's a case of, is all three-dimensional work stump work or not? I'll let you decide on that one. And then this is my Rapunzel project that I did, and on a similar theme. So she's got definitely three-dimensional hair. I've attached that, I've plaited it down to here, and it's got some ribbon and some threads wrapped through it, and these little leaves stick up. They've been cut out separately and stitched on, so it has got again these three-dimensional elements. Is it stump work? Maybe if I'd done her face in a slip as I did for William the Conqueror, and maybe wired these little leaves, you could call that traditional stump work. So it's just maybe traditional stump work is those use of techniques, the wrapping the wire, the wrapping the cardboard and the beads, and making an element first and putting it on, rather than just attaching a material to the fabric. But an interesting one to think about. Let me know what you think. So before we have a look at channel members and patrons' work, it's time to do the giveaway, I think. So this is the book that I am going to give away. It's called Raised Embroidery, and it's by Barbara and Roy Hurst, and it's a practical guide to how to do the stump work technique. It's really lovely. I'll just have a quick flick through. It's got a little bit of history at the beginning. One of those lovely caskets in there, boxes. How to do the needle lace, how to do some padding, how to do faces, and some projects as well for you to have a go at. So it is really a lovely book. So we are going to give that away. And all you have to do to get your hands on this is to just leave me a comment below this video in the comments section with the words Raised Embroidery in it. So that's the name of the book, Raised Embroidery. I'll put that on the screen here. Do make sure you spell that correctly, because our random winner generator will choose somebody based on those exact words spelled exactly as they appear on the screen. So do please take care when you type that in. And today is Friday the 13th, so we're going to give you 1 week to enter. We will do the draw on Friday the 20th of January 2023, so do make sure that you leave your comments before that date to have a chance of winning. Once our winner has been chosen, we will leave a response to the comment that you leave. So please do check your comments to see if you've won. I'll also pin a comment to the top of the video. Your names will be in the video as well, and I'll put it on social media too. So please do check one of those places to see if you've won, because we'd really like to send it to the first person that we draw out. And then we will give you instructions on how you can get in touch with us so we can send your prize out to you. So good luck with that, everybody. Okay, let's have a look at some of your work. Once again, thank you to channel members and patrons for sending in pictures of your work. If I haven't included everybody here, we will hopefully get some more stump work videos in, and I'll definitely put them in there. So thank you for sending them in. So the first one that I want to show you is this one. This is by Winifred. And the design was by Jane Nicholas. I'll mention Jane Nicholas's book shortly. And it was taught by Celeste Chalasani at an embroidery school class in Chicago. It's this beautiful little flower, and I think sometimes stump work can look a little bit solid and a little bit kind of on or off, but I think this one is super delicate, and Winifred's done a really beautiful job with it. So the next one is from Lorraine in Edinburgh. Thank you, Lorraine, for sending it in. I'm going to read what she said about this one. So she made it for her friend's little girl, and the words in the background are from a poem by John Skelton, and the flowers represent their birth months. So the little girl and the parents of the little girl and their birth months are in there in the forms of the flowers. There's a stunning amount of work in this one, Lorraine. I'm in awe of this one. Absolutely fantastic, and I hope that they really loved it, because they should have done. And then Lorraine sent in a second one as well. That's this one here. This is one of her first stump work pieces, and what she did is she gathered together all of her little samplers, so just as I did in the shoe, but Lorraine's put hers in probably much nicer format than I did, Lorraine. So it's beautiful, and she's put all of her little pieces together and made this beautiful flower design out of it. Just shows you what great technique it is for having all those little bits. You can still make something even with those little samples that you've got. Then we've got this little primrose in a pot from Susan, and what I really love about this is just a beautiful simple design, but how stunning does it look just by finishing it in the flower pot. So you know, you don't just have to make the flower and then think, oh, what shall I stick it on? You can just do this whole entire design, whole entire three-dimensional piece, and put it in the plant pot as well. It's really, really lovely. Well done. Okay, so now we've got this mad crazy piece in her own words from Emma from Ayrshire. This was Emma's 2022 Stitch a Day project, and she did admit she didn't stitch on it every day, but there is an awful lot of stitching. This is absolutely amazing, and you can see some of the stump work techniques in this piece as well. So you can see the little faces there in the middle, and you can see the dragonfly wings as well. And in Emma's own words, she says it's utterly bonkers, but it was great fun, and she's learned lots. So Emma's been watching the videos and sort of learning a little bit from the video. So thank you so much for Emma for watching and for sharing this piece with you, because I think it is bonkers, but it's stunningly bonkers. So well done for doing that. It's really awesome. Thank you for sharing it with us. And the last piece that I want to share with you today is from Kana. Kana is in Japan. Hello, Kana. It feels a little bit like a Stitching Around the World video. We've got all sorts of countries coming in on this. It's really, really wonderful. And this is Kana's beautiful cherry blossoms that she's done. So this is her silk shaded bird. And you can see the flat cherry blossoms that are on the background. So remember I talked about grounding it onto the background fabric. And then she's made some three-dimensional stump work ones just underneath the bird, just to sort of bring the whole thing to life. It starts flat and it comes to life with the bird. embroidered with these beautiful cherry blossoms. So really stunning, Kana. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So if you are interested to learn more about this, then do let me know in the comments. I'd certainly like to do a couple of videos on it. Let me know which thing you liked and which technique you might like to learn first. If you want to learn from a book, there are loads and loads of books available. This is a really good one. This is Jane Nicholas. This is from one of the pieces that I've just shown you was done from Jane Nicholas as well. There is Kay Dennis is a good one to look out for. The Barbara and Roy Hurst books are good. There's more than one of those as well. There's an RSN Essential Stitch Guide to Stump Work as well. There's an A to Z of stump work. I will list them all in the description below this video, and you can go and check those out if you're interested to learn more about this wonderful technique. So I hope you enjoyed that little look at raised work embroidery and inspired to have a go. Don't forget to enter our competition as well, and if you want to see another video, you can check this one out up here, all about stump work. If you've enjoyed this video, as always, please do give it a thumbs up. That will share the embroidery love around on YouTube, and I will see you in the next video.